I've met a lot really interesting people here so far. It's been super cool. A lot of people doing projects. It's crazy how many projects are going on right now. I think just because of all the streaming stuff that's happening now, everybody's getting funding from somewhere, and you don't need a whole lot to be able to do something. So.
Well, I want to give you a chance to sort of like at least on camera say who you are a little bit, whatever you want to say about your background. But what I'm doing is testing a bunch of philosophical ideas that haven't been, put into the actual market to see if they make sense or not.
Sure.
I think that you fit into a particular. I'm projecting you into this kind of box, and I don't know if you really fit there or not.
That's okay.
But you're a good kind of test case for some of these ideas I'm wrestling with, and I just want to see from a real person who, whether or not that actually.
I'm totally game.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we're good.
So, who are you? What are you about? What's your deal?
My name is Jason Matthew Smith. I'm an actor. Been in the industry a long time. I started out in doing a lot of television, guest starring. I did my big highlights to my career. I played Eric Olczyk in Playmakers. It was the first scripted series for ESPN.
Okay.
We got canceled by the NFL. Yeah. The NFL didn't like the stories we were telling, so that's a whole story in and of itself. And then recently I've done the last 3 Star Trek films with J.J. Abrams, and I have a movie coming out this summer. I have a small part in Bullet Train with it's David Leitch film. He did co-directed John Wick and Deadpool and Atomic Bomb.
I think I told you I saw the billboard for it on the Quasette here at the festival.
Oh, cool! I haven't seen it yet, but I'm
cool.
hoping to see it. But yeah, that's coming out I think July 29th. Nationwide in the U.S. I don't know what the world premiere is. Maybe that's the world premiere, but it should be fun. It looks like a really interesting, fun movie. So
very cool. So I, just as a setup, so you know a little bit about what we're doing is, I'm really creating what I hope is a major motion picture studio for everyone. So anybody can join, and everyone has their role. It's open to anybody to be an actor, whether you're beginning and just trying to break in, or you're established, or you end up in the mailroom where you can actually sort submissions and make decisions. Like you read a screenplay and you either you contribute your time or your money. If you want to be an actor and you want to submit yourself, you read a screenplay and you put yourself forward, and the director will receive something in their inbox in the mailroom of like the submissions for casting and decide whether or not they want to attach you to that production and so on. One of the things that we're doing and trying to explain to people is it's our business model, and we have a fixed contract system for how people are compensated for their work, and it's not changeable. So it's not like on a case by case basis. It's mainly we have like our first studio is called Studio Zero. We're going to fund a slate of productions for Studio Zero that are under the same rules. Right. We're gonna put that into the market, get some feedback. Are those rules good? Are they bullshit? Do they need to change? And then update it like it's an operating system. Okay. So like version 0.0 is really just my ideas, not really tested in the market, but kind of my vision. Like as if I were a screenwriter writing a screenplay. Right. That's my operating agreement that I've created, and then I'll get feedback, and then update it and create new versions for new seasons. In the future. Right. But this first version, has this idea, and I'll ask you to try some questions, so I'm not just monologuing. But is it true that actors will work for different amounts, even if it's not their quote, in different scenarios? And what are those scenarios? What might be a reason why somebody might choose to not take their quote and work at it for a different amount, or what is that in your experience?
So it varies widely depending upon the budget of the film, which category it falls into. In the Screen Actors Guild, there's different tiers of production just based upon how much money the film has. If it's typically, as for me, it just depends on what the project is. If it's a smaller budget movie, they have, I think the lowest they go is like a SAG modified ultra low budget. So in those cases, the guild doesn't enforce they'll give you a waiver on our minimums, the actors' minimums. So in those scenarios, if it makes sense to me, if it's a good role, if I feel like, it's a good production, that's something I weigh and consider when making a decision on a role or a part. And then, it only goes up from there. Obviously, when you get to the low budget ones, it's probably gonna be a minimum, the SAG minimum, and that's a set amount. And then it's negotiable from there on up. When you get into the bigger films, the J.J. Abrams and David Leitch films, then it's all negotiable at that point.
And, I've also heard stories of, even the highest budget actors maybe showing up for a film for their friend, and maybe not they can't afford to pay them, but they'll do it because they really love the project, or just a favor to a friend.
Sure, that becomes a little bit trickier. Agents obviously have a big say-so in what an actor can.
That's how they get their 10%.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Exactly. So they'll, some of the bigger stars will, on occasion, reach down into the indie world, or some of the smaller budgeted productions if they really believe in it. Maybe the guy's a really good friend of theirs, or they just see this as something super interesting, and none of the studios are ever gonna throw money behind it. They can definitely do that.
At what point in your career, or friends that you know, or yourself, at what point do you think that you begin to be able to negotiate, either through your agent or whatever, points or equity in the project as opposed to just a salary? What point are you leaving the minimums, do you think, and then starting to negotiate with? Yeah,
that's really on the lower budget stuff. Those are when those conversations come in with the producers or whatever, to maybe they don't have the money up front to pay the actors on a daily basis. It seems like it's becoming more common these days, because some of the bigger actors like Robert Downey Jr. and stuff has made so much money on the Iron Man franchise and stuff on the back end. So a lot of these bigger stars, you'll see them showing up in the smaller productions because they're taking a piece of the back end.
And who's getting a piece of the back end on larger productions? Only the select few?
Yeah, definitely. The stars, they'll get it, but they won't get as much on the back end. And producers and executive producers really like to keep a tight rein on those points. Those points, yeah.
So that's a good segue. I think that that's what we're attempting, is to make valuable those back end percentages, and to offer those to everyone, so that you can either take. So our system is based on not your value, but I guess how we determine your value in the system is really based on these guild minimums that you mentioned.
Sure.
So we're basing it all off of whether it's the SAG or the DGA, off of the high budget theatrical minimums.
Yeah.
So not dealing with the ultra low budget or the other ones. We're just saying, okay, this is the rate of the high budget theatrical minimums. You can take that as a guaranteed payment if you choose to. So if you want to work on one of our films, you can opt to take that high budget theatrical minimum. Or you can trade that back in for a first dollar gross return.
There you go.
So you can, and it's your choice. And so all these productions, from an executive producer standpoint, one of the metrics we're trying to use to determine whether or not a project, how to judge a project, is really how many people care about these equity returns, and how many really just want to get their minimum pay. Because I've seen a lot of horror projects where people are actors on the things just coming in to get a little payday, to get a little bit of money. They don't necessarily even have read the script. They're just showing up, and they're just trying to get a little bit of money out of it. They probably don't even believe that it goes anywhere. So I'm trying only to greenlight projects where there's a really good story that people are really passionate about.
Right.
Not because a celebrity's attached to it, not because a director's attached to it, or some names attached to it. I'm actually trying to mask all of that and only present in the mailroom screenplays for people to read and decide, do they like the story? And you have to make a commitment to that story even before knowing who's attached to it.
Yeah.
And then trying to make valuable the idea of I could take this minimum theatrical agreement. I can't get more than that, even if I'm a star, which is limiting to us, because some people might want, hey, if I don't get my quote, I'm not going to be part of it.
Right.
Well, that kind of just signals to me is maybe that script isn't that attractive to them. Maybe that project isn't that attractive to them, because if they do have star power, and this is the theory, that they should be able to get people to turn up to the movie because of their star power and actually test whether their quote in the market is worth anything.
Right.
Because if it does, that back end first dollar gross, which is a very, like the holy grail of the highest budget films, if they're giving that, if we're giving that to them and they're getting that, then their star power should show up in their back end points. And you know, that's the theory. So does that seem like bullshit, or does that seem like it might work? Or
I think it'll
anybody
work
willing?
on some. You know, it's a business. You know, a lot of people are making business decisions.
100%. No arguing with that. Yeah.
It's a tricky thing. It's a trust issue too. Just because in the past you can get burned on situations like that where, you know, a lot of people sometimes would rather, we don't necessarily know on the, I'm just talking mainly on the smaller budget stuff, is like, you know, they can have all the production pieces there, but then when it comes time to market the movie, where's that marketing money going, and how do we know that it's going to get out or go somewhere?
So we have so a couple things there. The first one is we definitely want to support all the productions in terms of, so it's a full service, including distribution and exhibitions. And it's really important to me that every release have an international on-demand theatrical release. So we've contacted and begun relationships with AMC, Gamut, places to be able to make sure all of our projects get at least a minimum window theatrically, and whether or not it's extended, it's an on-demand model. So it's more or less like based on if there's pre-sales for that showtime in that theater, the run gets extended, almost like a Broadway play gets like extended.
Right.
So that model has existed. AMC has done that already, kind of on one-off productions, but this is kind of just saying systematically that's how we want to present our movies, so that they do get a theatrical run. Right. And then have those partnerships in place. But it's definitely a credibility trust thing. Like, you know, initially if we have nothing, people are gonna just have to judge maybe me or whoever's close to it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, but once we get those relationships and those establishments, and once people actually see, I mean, because as far as the points are concerned, on small budget and on big budget movies, people have been burned. Like that's where I kind of started with this, was Hollywood accounting, and how net points are structured in terms of, they called them monkey points. There was this word for monkey points, so it's like you might negotiate with your agent a net profit deal, but even the large studio might just account things in such a way where the movie never sees profit, therefore you never see any money from these net points. Right. Which was kind of historically how it evolved into asking for first dollar gross. Right. People want to see, hey, this money made this much at the box office, I'm seeing nothing, what's going on? Right. You know, so I want to make a relationship between this made this much at the box office, this is how much is in your account that you can log into and see and understand how we arrived at that. And I think that's just a transparency issue, that once people see it and they get it in their account, it'll mean more to people to see that it's legit. Yeah. It's real.
And I think something that's important too is like, there's a lot of talent out there, right? There's a lot of really good talent, but because the spaces at the top are occupied, some of the lower tiered talent doesn't get a chance to shine, you know, doesn't get their time to kind of prove their worth to it. So if there's a way for those people, an avenue, and it sounds like there would be some of that opportunity here, I think that would be maybe initially some of the starting points for this, is some of the people just wanting to get their name out there, prove themselves, show that there's an audience there. And maybe that would be the case where they would take, you know, they wouldn't need to get the minimum. They could take the back end deal just to see what they're worth, you know. There's a low gamble on all the way around, you know. Yeah. So. Yeah,
I think initially, I mean, I don't know, it depends, but I definitely can see there is a group of people who's more likely to go on that journey than others. You know, just to get themselves out there on a cool new project. I think this is a cool new system that's like doing something different. Yeah. To be part of that, because we're starting, because we're different, we actually are getting attention from people who are like, what are you doing? And that's very interesting. And I think that it's kind of like being in the app store when there was only one app on the iPhone. It's like, it was like just being that app, you know, by itself, you got more downloads than you probably are justified to get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But now it's like competing on the App Store with millions. It's really hard to get trending to the top 100 to get downloads on your app. So hopefully the people that are here at the beginning that do our initial slate of projects will get maybe more attention that they might otherwise get, and for that reason, take a risk. Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, do you have a project that you'd like to be in, or that you're working on, you want to pitch that you maybe could be a fit for what we're doing? Do you have?
There's tons of them.
Yeah.
Anna keeps the keys on a lot of them.
Keeps the keys on them? Okay,
yeah.
I'll have to talk to Anna about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of filmmakers that I've talked to here at Cannes that have some really interesting projects, and those are types of projects that would probably be really good for this. They're great ideas. I mean, really well developed. They have the whole package put together, but they don't have the funding yet. And obviously that's always the case. And that I was reflecting on that at this Cannes, is like, over the years I've heard so many great ideas, great stories that never go anywhere. They never go anywhere, and I'm like, dang it, man, there should be some way for these kinds of stories to at least have somebody take a look at them who could actually make those decisions. Sometimes it's everybody wants a star attached to it or something like this attached to it before they're thrown money. It's like the chicken or the egg type scenario.
I think that if I could affect change in any particular direction, I think it would be to be a system that's able to take more risks on original content, like those ideas. I think the industry today is a lot about still the pre-awareness. Like it has to be based on a sequel, based on a book, based on a character, based on something.
It's very conservative. It's like
it's
the
already
business.
Out there.
It's crazy for such an artistic industry. You can see it with all the Marvel movies and the franchises. It's a business. The people at the top in the studios, most of the studios do not want to take any kind of a risk, because risk means risk. They could end up losing the money. But if you can offer, like, I kind of see what you're talking about as like, maybe more of the lower price stocks on the stock exchange, where you could invest in something that could have the potential of, skyrocketing and making a lot of money. And it's based upon good content, like good scripts, good actors, good directors. If you can create something like that, your penny stocks suddenly become blue chip stocks.
Yeah, and I just think it's crazy because it is systemic. Like, it's not even just the little productions that are being left out. Like, I was very, very surprised. I think when we met, I told you that I would love to be able to finance, for this system to be able to finance Coppola's, Megalopolis, and the fact that he's a 6-time Academy Award winner, and for 20 years hasn't been able to get any studio to take a risk on his dream pet projects, just seems like clearly it's not just the little guys. Nobody wants to take risk on just anything original with that much money, and I think we're designed to take those kind of risks, and that would be my dream project. I guess I could finance something like that.
That's awesome.
Like on both spectrums. We have another project that's kind of literally a contained project. It's in a container. The entire movie takes place in a container. It could be shot for $50,000. So really the spectrum from $50,000 to $200 million project. It's trying to run that whole gamut and not pigeonhole ourselves into, we're the low budget project or whatever. Really is, for anyone.
Full spectrum.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you for coming to interview.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it too.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right.
Nice to meet you.